just consume on content.
Dude, this guy's filming like walkout videos, like he's fucking Travis Scott. Does that say Demona nuclear reactor? Oh my god, dude, they're mogging us so hard. They're mogging so hard right now. This is DJ Tao, and this is Mike Perez, and welcome to episode 2 of Situation Sundays.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of situations going on as we're in hour 360 of Donald Trump's 48-hour war that he started on March 21st with Iran. It's going as well as you could believe. He's now praising Allah on his own social media platform. I believe Sun Tzu had something in his book about this.
I'm sorry, are you going to mention the quote and then
Well, 'cause you're Asian,
it's automatically my responsibility to remember what Sun Tzu says.
As the Asian, I think that would be his
Mike, what book did Sun Tzu write?
The Art of War.
Yeah?
That's a pretty good book. I've read the book.
Have you?
I've read the book, yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm impressed. I don't believe you, but I'm impressed.
You know who didn't read it? The President of the United States.
Actually, I heard the President of the United States can perfectly draw a map of the Middle East from memory, all right? RFK said that, and I choose to believe him.
RFK's doing the chemicals, making the frogs gay or whatever they were talking about before that. That's my response to that.
Oh, it is kind of funny that Trump is actually, I think I mean, he's been losing people left and right, these longtime supporters. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, is probably one of the earliest ones to jump ship, which I respect, because it's not easy to be the first person to jump out of a cult. But to lose Alex Jones over the weekend is like, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. He's lost Alex Jones.
I'm happy for Alex Jones. He's been saying there's a pedophile cabal for 20 years, and he finally got it.
It's funny because for decades he's been trying to draw attention to the the situation and whatnot, and then right when the year it actually hits, he refuses to actually identify who's responsible. He's been dancing around it. Nick Fuentes calls him out on this. Maybe this changes things, or maybe it doesn't.
I mean, he's just pushing the Trump is sick narrative, not that Trump sucks. Trump sucks. That's what the reality is here. He has no plan. He's fired anybody who disagreed with him. He's aimlessly running around Iran, spiraling. He has no plan. And go with that.
Speaking of having no plan, did you not vote for him 3 times, Mike?
And I jumped off tariff day. Bad economic policy is bad economic policy. And
so you jumped off 9 years into
I'm an American.
presidency.
I'm an American, and the Constitution is what comes first before any presidential candidate. A lot of Americans seem to forget this because they get sucked up in the cult of personality, whether it's with...
You got sucked up in the cult of personality.
And we have a busy hell week ahead of us. Trump's deadline that he's pushed back repeatedly. Wednesday, the FOMC minutes. PCE on Thursday, and Friday, CPI. So it's going to be a rough week, and I think it's going into the downward end.
I don't know. I think that a lot of people expected the market to crash on Friday after the on Thursday, after the Wednesday night overnight session was a total bloodbath. And somehow on this, I know it was very thinly traded, but the market absolutely ripped on Thursday, and everyone was just absolutely and totally disgusted. I think that might have been the most hated rally I've ever seen. And I've been doing this for a little bit, but I don't think I've ever seen a more hated rally.
Now, the great question we've talked about in the past, do we think the Treasury is the one buying up stock?
I don't know. It certainly did because you have to wonder who is it that is bidding those up, right? Because, it doesn't look like there's any sort of resolution on the horizon to this war. It doesn't look like Iran has any interest in negotiating, despite whatever the president might have said. It doesn't look like there were ever peace talks at all, which means he completely just made it up, and now it's becoming clear. So, if the situation doesn't look like it's gotten any better, and it's only gotten worse over the weekend, Monday should theoretically be a gap down, but that's not what we're seeing right now in the futures market. It does seem like the market is very complacent with this war, and I don't know if it's because whether or not the market thinks that it's there really are peace talks and we're just believing everything the president says, or if it's like the situation during COVID, right? And remember the run up into COVID, we would see all these headlines, and the market didn't react until Bill Ackman went on TV and started crying about hell is coming, and obviously he ended up being right, and he made a bunch of money off that one call, and he sucked ever since.
I mean, hell is coming. I mean, can you argue that the S&P should be at 650? Or the SPX should be at 6,500? No. Um, bring the SPY back to 550. There's no situation here where this market's incredibly overvalued, and now we have a mix of situations. You have the data center and the AI crisis. You have private credit right now, a strain on that industry. You have a war. You have an energy crisis. You have inflation creeping back up. You have just everything that could happen at once is happening. So what's the result of that? Is it stagflation later in the year? Or is it hyperinflation? We're looking at a multitude of paths because you have a multitude of things. It's not even just like COVID where we had one thing. Everything is fucked up. And it's from years of incompetence. It's from an incompetent president. And I don't think Donald Trump's going to get out of this. I don't think he's going to be able to. I think this presidency dies here, to be honest.
So it's been 2 weeks between this episode and our first episode, and we're now. What did you say it was? 360 hours into this war in Iran. What are your thoughts on this? Are we winning? Are we losing?
We're losing.
Why are we
There's
losing?
no way, first and foremost, we had to use a Tomahawk missile to kill a 90-year-old man. That's all we've accomplished so far. In a tunnel, in a cave, or wherever he was, we used $100
I
million.
think he was at his house, actually. He was at the most obvious place that we possibly could have found him, and we acted like it was like this great intelligence operation. That was like, good news, guys, we finally found him. He was at his house.
Just for the.
You know why he was at his house? Because we were in the middle of peace negotiations with them. And you're supposed to be off limits in the middle of peace negotiations, and then we killed them.
Well, that's something I think presidents are going to have trouble in the future making up for, which in general, in the past year, is the loss of trust in the American government. Can you trust America with anything after Tariff Day, after the situation? If you're South Korea and your missile systems are getting moved out to get sent to Iran, how are you looking at the U.S. now?
Do you think this is going to affect other countries buying American weapons, for example?
Yes, American weapons and American firepower was vastly overestimated here. We thought we were invincible, and we took on at the end of the day, Iran's a terrible war because of the terrain, the mountains, the people in general. It's a terrible war to fight. But how bad we've gotten mopped, it's just nothing short of embarrassing. There's a reason we're seeing all these generals resign. There's a reason we're seeing the United States military operate in a way it's never operated before. If you look at the 2003 Iraq invasion, the U.S. used to have logistics, and it seems they fired anybody who has any understanding of logistics at this point.
Logistics are how, historically, even dating back centuries, how wars have typically been won and lost. Some of the greatest generals in history, I think people have this portrayal that that there's these amazing like hand-to-hand combat fighters. No, they were all just masters of logistics. Napoleon was a master of logistics. Julius Caesar was a master of logistics. Alexander the Great was a master of logistics, and it just seems like that element of being good at logistics is just something that we're really missing in this conflict.
And I don't think Donald Trump's going to be added to that list of names of great logistics. I think the minute we try to launch any sort of land invasion, it's going to continuously, it's just going to go bad. Donald Trump's back's against the wall here. He's losing the war. He's losing support. And a land invasion on Cog Island is his next option. And how does that go when you just fired 12 generals? There's no experience in the military left. And the average American citizen is overestimating how fast you can insulate yourself with dumbasses. And that's what's happened here. It doesn't matter if the B-2 stealth bomber can get past radar systems. This is a war that needs to be won with logistics. And we do not have the brains anymore to carry out any of these operations that are needed.
What would you say we need to do to win this war at this point? Because many are saying that if we don't nuke, we're not winning.
We need to make a deal, and the deal is going to be unfavorable to the U.S. I think this deal, by the end of this war, I think a deal will be reached, and I think it'll be more favorable to Iran. I think you'll see sanctions lifted off of Iran like we already have, but we're going to continue to do that. I actually think Iran walks out of this a more powerful nation for 5 to 10 years. They give up nuclear enrichment. That's what all Donald Trump can hope for here, which I don't think they'll give up because they're winning the war. But if a deal is done, I'm assuming it would have some parameters around this. And it looks like Iran actually wins this war no matter what on paper. If there's a peace deal tomorrow, Iran will be making more money than they ever did, showed that they could close off the strait, which we never knew. Before this war, we did not know if Iran could take the strait. We didn't know. We thought they could, but we assumed we could stop them. Now we know the answer.
I don't know that that's true because I'm assuming every other president before Trump, when approached with the prospect of fighting this war on Iran, they've all been briefed on Iran's capability to close the strait. That's why none of them were stupid enough to go for it until now.
Yeah, I mean,
I refuse to believe that we never received intel that Iran could do what they did, and this is all some giant surprise to the entire military. I don't believe it. I think they were told that, and the president didn't believe it.
yeah.
And here we are.
I mean, I agree with that. I think Trump ignored all of his advisors and fired everybody. But at the end of the day, we're looking at a situation where we didn't know before. We had it was probably a 50-50 toss if they could close the strait. But now we know they can. And that changes the world dynamics forever. Because it was always, did they fully know if they could close the strait? Did we fully know 100%? Neither. Both parties probably didn't know 100%. Maybe it was 70%, 60%, those type of odds. Now we know for 100% certainty Iran, which was now powerless before this, I believe they're more powerful now.
Well, here's a question for you. We talked about America losing the soft power that we used to have. And then Trump threatened to leave NATO last week. So do you think the United States will leave NATO?
Within the next 2 years, Israel will attack Turkey and the U.S. would have left NATO already. That's my prediction. And I think the U.S. would solely leave NATO so Israel can then attack the Muslim Brotherhood in Turkey, which is their goal at the end of the day. They've stated it, Turkey's next. If you listen to Netanyahu's speeches, this aligns perfectly with Trump's past behavior, which is to side with Israel against the world.
So you think that the sole purpose of the United States leaving NATO is just so that doesn't trigger an Article 5 when Israel attacks Turkey?
Yes, we're gonna do the same thing we did here. I mean, what's different than leaving South Korea unprotected? We already left them unprotected to bring our missile systems to Israel. The U.S. is gonna side with Israel regardless. I don't think that it's the U.S. and Israel versus the world at this point. We will leave NATO. It will be a disaster.
You know, I remember during our first episode, we talked about the information asymmetry aspect in which certain people with a lot of money and a lot of resources seem to be thinking that the war is going very differently than, I think a good segment of the population as far as who's winning and who's losing. And now that we are 360 hours in, I think we are starting to get a clearer picture, or at least the facts are becoming more balanced as far as maybe we were not as dominant as people initially thought we were.
I mean, of course we're not. All we're good at is dropping bombs from really high radiuses, and if we're not doing that, we clearly can't accomplish anything in this war.
But if you look at the majority of these Twitter comments, I'm still seeing a lot of people saying, like, we destroyed their Air Force, we destroyed their Army, we destroyed their Navy, they have absolutely nothing. They better come to the table, we're going to bomb them into oblivion, because these people are still very convinced that that the United States is not only winning the war, but winning the war by a very large margin. And, I feel like it's getting more and more polarized, despite that we now have a lot of information and data coming out of this thing that would really strongly suggest that, if anything, Iran is winning this war. But at least amongst the general population, there still seems to be a significant number of people that think the opposite.
Well, it's a great stress test on the American population because they're not the Chinese population where they're used to prolonged suffering or they're used to a period in time. So $6 gas, eventually you're going to see, now people are waking up because Americans are ignorant until it's in front of their face. But this war's been going poorly since the start of it. And just because now gas is $6, so you see people kind of turn and kind of become experts in the situation. If you're other Middle Eastern countries, right now all you have is a bunch of blown up U.S. military bases. You have a hole in your pocket, and like we've talked about before, how do you solve that? Selling U.S. treasuries. I think it's the next step.
Why?
We left everybody to die. That'd probably be the first reason. We've shown we will defend Israel. We will not defend you. And we let our bases that they let us have in their country get blown to smithereens. And just continue on about our day.
It looks like there are two different paths that the Gulf countries are taking. One of them is Qatar. What Qatar said that they would actually end the security agreement with the United States, and they're kind of taking a step back from the relationship with the United States. And then you have what UAE is doing, which is they're doubling down. So it remains to be seen what the best path forward is. I don't think Qatar's too happy about gifting Trump like a $400 million plane, and then not even be given a heads up, and now their largest LNG plant is off. They declared force majeure. They they probably can't open again for another 5 years. So that all that lost revenue that they're not going to get back.
Well,
They're all going to be in rebuilding mode, and I agree. I think they do have to. To rebuild, you kind of need money, and these countries were printing presses for years, right? You had always just all pure revenue coming in, and now they have to spend a lot of money just to get some of that production back online.
Well, what's great is we talked about this earlier this year and during the tariff stuff. Well, we thought the Middle East had figured out the cheat code on how to figure out Trump, which is simply you flatter him, you give him a $400 jet, you give him a big parade, and he actually sides with you. His allegiance to Israel is greater. We asked why China just didn't just give him his little celebration, let him get his little photo op in Beijing. I mean, now we see what he simply can't be trusted. So we kind of see what we talked about earlier in the year playing out here in live action.
Do you think that meeting with China that's already gotten postponed, it was supposed to be in April, do you think that still ends up happening in
There's
May?
no chance.
You don't think it's going to happen?
They're not going to. No, there's a 0% chance.
If this war's still going, I would say that it definitely there would be almost no point.
I think President Xi has more interest in meeting with me than Donald Trump. At this moment in time, I genuinely think that is where we are at. It's a losing. He looks like a war criminal. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is a war criminal here. He did not follow. Congress did not approve this war, and it's the same thing as taking a picture with Netanyahu. We're at the same level almost. And right now, China's in a great position to continue letting the U.S. destroy itself on a world stage and building stronger alliances across Europe and across the East. Leaving NATO will be one of the biggest blunders in Empire's history. At the end of the day, it benefits us to every end. Clearly, as you can see with Middle Eastern countries, us having their bases in their country doesn't really benefit them in any way as they get bombed on our behalf and we don't protect them. So leaving NATO in a way actually kind of protects NATO.
So why is it a blunder then?
The U.S.
If does that not mean we send less money overseas and we focus more on ourselves?
That means they stop buying our weapons. And we're not. There's this false narrative that we're sending trillions of dollars to these countries. In reality, we don't do that. We sell them weapons. We do these 30-year agreements. We do all these. The average person thinks that we gave $40 billion to Ukraine, and they just have $40 billion in a bank account, and they go on Amazon and order Tomahawk missiles. They don't. At the end of the day, it's defense contracts, and you're going to see widespread across Europe get canceled defense contracts to no end.
But this war with Iran has kind of exposed a lot of weaknesses in, I think, American technology, and this mystique of American military dominance, I think, is quickly evaporating on a day-by-day basis. Lockheed especially, I think there's a lot of questions now about why is it so easy to shoot some of these planes down when Iran is supposed to be this backwater second-rate power. I think we lost 9, 10 planes over the weekend, and there's this saga with the down down F-15, and this story is really not adding up for me because we lost a C-310 trying to recover the pilot, and there's a lot of things that are weird here, but it definitely looks like we were not as prepared for this conflict as I think a lot of people thought that we would have been.
Yeah, and I think it's a mistake that the U.S. is going to continue to be stuck with. Anyone in Iran's military leadership is already in the mountains. And now we're going to launch a land invasion with what? I mean, it's going to be they have 1 million active soldiers to defend Iran. We're going to send 10,000 Marines in there? I don't understand the plan. I don't.
I think no matter who you ask here, you're going to get a different answer for exactly what the plan is. There's a 1 p.m. press conference tomorrow from the White House. What do you think they talk about? What do you think Trump is? But once that deadline that he imposed runs out for the 8th time or the 10th time.
Yeah, he just moved it.
What is it that he's going to do this time? Is he going to finally, what's he going to do?
He's probably going to declare victory for the 40th time, but he actually might tariff day this situation, in my opinion. There is a decent chance he rains hell upon the markets. He's supposed to give this speech at 8 p.m., so it's out of market hours, and every speech he gives outside of market hours completely usually...
I thought it was at 1 p.m.
Nope, he moved it 2 more days into 8 p.m. So he gave them another extension on his 48-hour war that he started on March 21st.
Interesting.
This has the potential to be a tariff day because he's shaping this up the same way he shaped up the tariffs. He's talking about energy strikes, he's talking about all these things. Everybody didn't take him seriously going into it. I think he's gonna start trying. He might start committing outright war crimes, and I think that might be the plan here, is just to completely bomb water.
What do you mean start committing? We started this war off by bombing an elementary school. Do you think he's going to? What do you mean start?
Valid point. It's a valid point. Valid point. But I think we may see us commit great crimes against humanity.
What do you think we've been doing for the last 3 weeks?
Okay, if we bomb a water plant and just to dehydrate an entire country to death, I think
we've been doing that already.
Yeah.
What, like we've been bombing the power. We've been taking out power plants. We've been taking out desalination plants. We've been taking out civilian infrastructure. We've been taking out hospitals.
So now this begs the question: how accurate are U.S. strikes? Because for $1 trillion, you should be able to hit anywhere in the world. Like for you to tell me that the United States government cannot hit a specific building whenever it wants to, and have good due diligence on that building with a $1 trillion budget.
That's about to be a $1.5 trillion budget, by the way.
With cuts to Medicaid and everybody. If you're an American, go fuck yourself. That's what the cuts are. The cuts, I'm not even going to get into that policy yet because it's so horrific, it would take 30 minutes itself. That bill's...
So, what is it that you think is going to happen to the United States? Because a lot of people are already looking at, okay, this presidency has been an L, but whatever. The next president, whether it's, you think it's J.D. Vance or it's Marco Rubio or if it's Gavin Newsom or even AOC, that, they can get this, that America will survive because we can survive one bad president. And that, we're going to go right back to being the world's greatest superpower once this is all over. Do you think that happens? It'll
take decades to repair the damage the U.S. has done to trust. The next president will likely be a lame duck apology president who's going to have to go around the world for their 8 years or 4-year term and apologize. They're not going to be. I would assume that the next president's not going to make brash moves on a geopolitical level. We might even see a period of isolationism come back to the United States, like Trump did promise, except not with just Israel and wars. Because the United States really needs to just kind of lay low after these 4 years if there's any hope of surviving.
Well, see, I don't know. I don't really know that you can put the genie of multipolarity back into the bottle here, right? We've essentially given away our leadership role on the world stage. I don't think that actually ever comes back, right? Because I actually don't think that when you do things that are this serious and this permanent, you don't get a mulligan on stuff like this, right? I think one example that I can think of in history is, when Martin Luther came out against the Catholic Church, obviously there was a lot of criticism about the Pope, Leo X. He was a Medici, he wasn't like super religious, he was viewed as corrupt, and, everyone thought that, okay, after this Pope is done, we can bring the Protestants back into the fold. That never happened, right? And that was the great schism. And as a result, now we have that was a great split of Christianity that that continued for hundreds of years until what we have today. There are some mistakes that are so severe that you don't come back from, and I think that this presidency is one of those mistakes that we don't come back from.
I agree, but I think if you put an AOC in there, actually, I think the greatest thing the United States can do here, actually, is go into a period of isolationism. I think you elect someone like Tucker Carlson or maybe a Jamie Dimon, somebody who is going to bring the U.S.
Neither people have declared.
They have no interest.
Nor
they have no interest. This is fantasy.
And you know what? I would not want to be the next president of the United States because who wants to clean up this shit show? Not I.
Well, at some point, you might have to out of patriotism. I mean, that's unfortunately who steps up. I mean, J.D. Vance hasn't stand a chance. I don't even consider him a contender. I don't.
Well, he is very likely our next president of the United States. I don't want to get into it, but he might not even have to see He might not have to see an election for that.
Like J.D. Vance is obviously looks maxing for the presidency. He is gonna make sure J.D. Vance will be president. He's not gonna do it via election because everybody hates him. But nobody looks maxed this much if they're not aiming for the presidency. He got a tan, he got on Reddit, lost some weight. He's ready to get photo opped on the White House lawn with his ugly wife.
Is this all because Clavicular called him a fat retard?
Yes.
Wow.
Clavicular. It's
So
crazy.
he was cyberbullied by a 21-year-old streamer, and it changed his life for the better.
And that's because of the perception of this administration, because this administration only cares about perception. They put a huge emphasis. It's like they're terrified of Clavicular, but they're not afraid of the Iran war. And I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is the perception. And for the first time in the Clavicular situation, they got attacked on looks and being cool and perception, and that's all they care about. They only care about TikTok edits and looking cool. So they don't care if we're losing the Iran war, if they could lie to the general population. But when Clavicular calls them fat, they're hopping on Reddit immediately. That's right. That's what happened there for JD Vance.
It is kind of funny that a Clavicular has altered the course of American history, quite possibly.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's like he is much smarter than people give him credit for.
Oh yeah.
There's definitely something there that I think that it's not like Fuentes, who was someone who was just very clearly super intelligent. Clavicular's is more it's more subdued, and it's more subtle. You know, it's like most people, they look at him and they think he's retarded, kind of like you. But there's something there under the surface that not everybody sees. And I think that he's honestly ended up surprising a lot of people.
Well, I mean, a lot of his theories were true. I think he said a lot of the true things about society and just kind of put it front and face, and everybody kind of realized it. I mean, he's a superstar. He said he needed to become better looking to become famous, and he became famous that way by becoming better looking, proving society only cares about looks. I mean, we are the United States. This is kind of the general. He said the quiet part out loud. Is it possible we end up in a situation where Netanyahu and Donald Trump over the next year are looked at as two Hitler-like figures, and that's when China steps in towards the end, when the U.S. is getting walloped in Iran, and puts an end to this?
I think
Is that how World War III starts?
they're already looked at as worse than Hitler, I think, for the most part. This war really has, as bad as it's gone militarily, it's gone even worse from a public relations standpoint. We're getting mogged on the internet. The memes, just from the Iranian embassy pages, have been, like, we are getting walked on every single aspect of this war, including the memes. You're not supposed to lose the meme war. Have you seen our memes? They suck.
I didn't know.
They're cringe. They're difficult to look at. They're not funny. It's over. They know our markets better than us. They know our humor better than us. They know our people better than us.
I didn't even know Iran had this many embassies. I actually am unsure that they had just every day.
I think there are some meme pages that have changed their name to Iran Embassy and then fill in a random country. I don't know that they're all Iranian, but it doesn't really matter because, like you said, perception is reality.
Yeah, and this is an administration that clearly only cares about perception. So them getting mogged like this is just the most embarrassing thing for them.
That's a good point.
This is what they respond to. This administration responds to the perception of strength. They want the world to think we're strong, but without actually being strong. Donald Trump does not want to take Cog Island and deal with an amphibious invasion. He wants the credit for taking Cog Island and doing an amphibious invasion.
Well, if you watch that interview of him from 1988, I guess he has been gesture gooning about the prospect of taking Cog Island, which is so weird. This is a 40-year dream of his to take Cog Island. That's weird.
When did Jared Kushner meet his daughter?
I don't know. But in an alternate timeline, Ivanka Trump married Tom Brady, and none of this would have ever happened.
You know, that probably would have been the greatest thing to happen. If she had married Tom Brady, we wouldn't be at war right now.
It's just the butterfly effect of what could have happened, all because Tom Brady, didn't work out for Ivanka, and here we are, trillions of dollars later, thousands. of
what's
lives
up with
lost.
Brady? What's up with Tom Brady, I guess, in the end? I don't know, the jiu-jitsu coach. Just a rough one.
It's like, would Tom Brady have won 7 Super Bowls if he married Ivanka, or would he have ended up like Kanye, just totally batshit?
Yeah, you end up with the wrong woman. You end up like Kanye.
Yeah, that could never be you.
So we've seen the gold trade play out. We've seen the oil trade play out. What's the next trade in this war?
I think it's agriculture. I think agricultural commodities, specifically corn, wheat, sugarcane, and soybeans. I think those were the big 4. I think that's going to be the next commodity to run. We've seen gold run, and you see this at the beginning of every commodity super cycle, and I believe we're in the tail end of one right now. You see gold run first, and then you see silver, and then you have copper, platinum, palladium, and then after the metals run, energy runs. Right now, we're in the process of watching energy, oil, gas, these things run, and I think what happens every single time after energy runs is agricultural commodities run, and then food prices follow, and then you have, this wave of super inflation that hits the rest of the market, that drives up your grocery bills, your gas bills are already high. It's gonna get pretty ugly out there.
Now, what are you seeing in corn that the market's not pricing in here?
So one thing I've noticed about corn is that it is supposed to, for the most part, at least throughout history, it follows the price of crude. I'm gonna put the crude chart on here for comparison's sake. And I noticed something interesting this time around. In 2008, the price of oil peaked at $147 per barrel. During that run up, you can see that the price of corn moved in lockstep with crude. For the most part, you see how this mirrors crude almost perfectly until now. What is this? Like, this is a huge disparity between what it used to do, and it's not doing it now. And there are some explainable reasons. Mainly, we had a huge 2025 harvest for corn, and so we kind of have this supply glut that we're working our way through. But this is extreme, and this should revert back to the mean soon.
So why hasn't corn started moving yet? What is the rest of the market not currently seeing?
So that's a good question. And I think the big problem with this time around is that 2025 was a record harvest year. I think they closed the year with record-ending stocks. It was 11% higher than the previous year. I think it was like total output was 17 billion bushels. So they're still kind of working through that glut of supply, but they're moving through it pretty quickly because of the increased demand, especially in ethanol. And corn and sugar are both used in ethanol production. So they're probably going to move through that oversupply relatively quickly. So while this trade is kind of a slow burn because we're not at an immediate corn shortage, we're probably going to have one by next year or even towards the end of this year because the market's always forward looking. And there's a lot of reasons for why corn might move up as we get closer towards the end of the year. We have 50% of the world's fertilizer moves through the Strait of Hormuz. All of that is at a standstill. There's a global fertilizer shortage. Because of that shortage, farmers are switching their output to soybeans rather than corn, which is it needs a lot of pesticide. It needs a lot of fertilizer. If farmers don't have that, they're just going to switch to other crops that don't require as much fertilizer and as much pesticide. You have this drought happening in the United States right now in the South. It's pretty serious. It's hard to even produce oil right now because of how little water there is in the southern United States right now. Ticker is CORN that you can trade. Let's see, I can pull this up right here. So I like corn a lot. I also like sugar. Ticker for that is CANE. I think sugar actually has the best chart of all of these. The other ones are wheat. This is WEAT. And finally, we have soybeans. Although I do think that soybeans I'm the least bullish on because of the substitution effect of people switching from higher intensive fertilizer plays like corn and sugar. Obviously because of the fertilizer, they're gonna have to switch to lower fertilizer intensive crops such as soybeans and barley, and as a result, if you increase the supply of something, the price of that is gonna come down.